Now that you've found UBN Radio and discovered our quality talk shows, it's time to spread the word to friends, family, and the universe. 24 hours of music and talk. Radio without limits. That's why people keep coming back for more. That's ubnradio.com.
Welcome to the Larry Yates' Show. We welcome you from around the world, from the center of what we call the world, which is California, and then everything from here radiates on out. And today is a wonderful and glorious day that we get to celebrate the world of music, politics, and beyond. This is the Larry Yates' Show. And Larry is on the road again. He seems to be out and about in the country as well as outside of this country, and he sends his greetings to everyone. We really thank those of you who are loyal listeners and watchers for being here every week and giving us feedback on the programs and the people that we share with you. I am Reverend Carolyn Wilkins, the executive producer of the Larry Yates' Show, and I am a frequent co-host and full host on this show, so I know I'm not new to most of you. But to those of you who don't know me, I am involved in a ministry in California that is a very broad global ministry. And the work that I do is humanitarian work in reaching out to organizations and working with very important groups around the world who do humanitarian efforts, from orphanages to saving the rainforest, interfaith groups, and other programs. So I keep myself busy involved in a global level as well as a local level. So today, we are going to have a wonderful guest. His name is Reverend Paul Nugent, and he's director of the Aetherius Society. And we'll tell you more about Reverend Paul shortly. And what I want to do in the beginning, we always start with a little bit of question and controversy about how the world is turning. And today, I cannot help but laugh at some of the new comments from the political arena. And I have come from a place of being upset and furious as to how someone could treat people in a certain way, to really being more conscientious about feeling sad almost that there is a lack of substance in what I see with some of the candidacy and what's going on for the U.S. presidential race. I wind up speaking with people all over the world, and I get their feedback. In fact, we had a guest on from Germany just a few weeks ago, Wanda Guzman, and let me shout out to her. And it was interesting to hear her perspective of the rumors in Germany, in England, in Spain, what people think of what is going on here in the U.S., what the headlines say outside of the country. And people are quite baffled, quite honestly, by what is going on here, and because we're out of alignment, the conversations seem to be out of alignment with the very basis of what our Constitution stands for as well as the values of the United States. Now, we do talk about life, liberty, and the pursuit of justice. We also talk about free speech. So, under that, guys, all that is said, I guess, is fair game. But I'd like for you to think about the impact of our words, the power of our words, how our words are making a difference. I see some of the political candidates are actually using footage of young people listening to the radio, listening to television, at how candidates are mislabeling people, speaking about immigration, speaking about challenges to money, speaking about the relationships with Muslims, that everyone should be checked at the border. And I leave this as a question for you. What do you really want our children to hear today? What values do you want them to elevate themselves to? What is the basis that you want your children, your grandchildren, to judge people? Are you expanding your view or are you narrowing it? Are you elevating your thoughts to one that says there's freedom for everyone? Or are you questioning the people that are living in the United States who came here, whether as by choice, whether as an asylum, perhaps as an immigrant, or perhaps they were brought here? However they came for the idea of freedom and liberty and justice. So we'll talk about this a little bit later, of what the media does in its conversation. So I hope that you see that the Larry Yates Is show and the programs we bring are here to have you question, discuss, create controversy, create dialogue, so that we have rich dialogue around ideas, bring them to the forefront, and come to some conclusions. And I hope they're conclusions that leave our world, our country, and our community in a better place than it was. Because I really think that all of us come saying, if I can do nothing else, I want to leave a little good before I go. So with that in mind, I want to go back to one thing that completed last week, which was the Olympics. And I didn't think I was going to watch as many of the games and the different activities as I wound up watching. But I became fascinated with the U.S. gymnastics team, and then I watched the track and field, because one of our guests that was on last month was actually an Olympian. He ran for Nigeria and was at the Olympics in Rio. So I was paying a lot of attention, seeing if I could find people I knew, see the impact of what the games were having. And I have to salute the athleticism, the beauty, the commitment of those young people who were involved in the Olympics, from the women and the rowing, the basketball, volleyball. We had so many things that were going on. The swimming, the prowess of our swimmers, both the male and the female winners. The U.S. showed up in a very magnificent way, winning so many gold medals. I believe we won 127 medals in total, and the largest number as gold. And Michael Phelps was amazing, but I was fascinated with Simone and the beauty of her as a gymnast, winning 5 medals, 4 of them gold. So I salute all of the athletes. I salute the way that we showed up, represented our country, and I won't spend one moment talking about the one little offbeat that came with one of the swimmers. It's really not important. What's important is that there were thousands of young people who were committed to success, and we got to see what commitment, dedication, lots of hard work will pay off in your lifetime. So with that said, that's a look at today and what's going on today. And now we're going to turn to our guest, Reverend Paul Nugent. Can we give him a broad welcome? Well, thank you for being here. And I'd like for you to share with the audience a little bit about who you are. And I invited you because you put together this magnificent pilgrimage every year. So I'd like for you to share about the pilgrimage first, and then we're going to talk about who you are.
Sure. Well, thank you very much. And thank you very much for inviting me to be on your program, Reverend Carolyn. You mentioned the Olympics. I also love the Olympics.
Yes.
And you mentioned Team USA, which, of course, won more gold medals than any other country. But let me put in a shout for Team GB,
Yeah,
which
I know that, yes.
had the best Olympics they've ever had, even better than London 4 years ago. So
Yes.
let's just include them.
That's Great Britain, by the way.
Yeah,
if
Great
you
Britain.
weren't paying attention.
Yeah, that's maybe you can tell from the accent. This is an Englishman's accent. Well, no, the pilgrimage that you mentioned, what is it? We just had the last one, literally last Saturday,
Yes.
Which was the 8th annual interfaith World Peace Pilgrimage to Mount Baldy, which, as you know, is the highest peak in the San Gabriel Mountains, just about 50 miles east of where we are, Los Angeles. And this began, this being the 8th, it actually began 7 years ago in 2009. We in the Aetherius Society have been going to Mount Baldy. We go up there to pray several times a year. And we've been doing that since August of 1959. We regard it as a holy mountain, as indeed do the local San Gabrielino Tungva tribe of Native Americans, who, of course, have regarded it as a sacred mountain for much longer than the last 50-odd years.
Absolutely,
It's been
yes.
for generations. There is also, interestingly, a Zen Buddhist monastery at the bottom of the mountain. So there's lots of sort of sacred spiritual elements associated with Mount Baldy. And in 2009, August the 9th, it was our 50th anniversary of going to Mount Baldy to go and pray, send out energy to the world, spiritual energy. And we wanted to make it just a little bit different because it was, as I say, it was the 50th anniversary. Normally there's a few dozen of us who go on any one occasion. And so we set ourselves the target of having 100 people join us on the mountain to send out spiritual energy to the world. And so we thought, well, if we're going to do that, we're going to have to invite a few other groups.
Yes.
So, and we didn't know, we weren't connected with other groups at all really back then. And it was funny, actually, how it all came about. I mean, the wonderful synchronicity of the whole thing. And gradually we were introduced to people, organizations, other interfaith groups. And initially people were sort of a little bit, I'm not too sure, we'll get back to you, we'll let you know.
Yes.
And of course they didn't.
And I'm going to interrupt you for a second because Mount Baldy, if you haven't ever been, and actually pretty much everyone I run into in Los Angeles has never been to Mount Baldy, nor have they heard of Mount Baldy, because it's just not something we run into.
But
because
you
it's
can
east.
see it.
You can see it, but people
yeah.
don't realize they're looking at it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
So people who are more urban, dedicated, don't always go skiing. It is a ski area.
Normally, when they get
when
snow.
when there is snow,
Yeah.
and that's not always every year.
Yeah,
So I'll let you continue.
Right. Well, so it was a bit difficult to begin with to sort of find other organizations, churches, whatever, faith groups who were sort of keen and ready to come and join us.
Mm-hmm.
But then, literally, a week or two before the event, interest sort of began to grow, and instead of getting 100 people on the mountain as we hoped for, as was our intention, we actually had over 200 people. I think we had about 225 people
Beautiful,
join us on
yes.
the mountain, which was supposed to have been just for sort of a one-off event to celebrate the 50th anniversary. But of course, it was because it was just an amazing, wonderful, uplifting spiritual event, bringing all these faiths together in a rather sort of unique way. Many people said, well, you've got to do this again. And so we did the following year. And it's literally continued. We began by having 2 ceremony levels on the mountain because it does go up to 10,000 feet. And not everybody is able or wants to climb up to 10,000 feet. Actually, we don't go quite to the top. We go to about 9,500 feet. But we had ceremony levels initially at 2 levels, and then it grew into being 3 levels on the mountain, just to accommodate the number of faith groups, speakers who wanted to be involved.
And the physicality of those who were supporting it. And just again to share with the viewers, what we're looking at is the initial place you get to in Mount Baldy is the lower level, and you actually have to take a ski lift.
It's a beautiful ski lift.
A beautiful ski lift that goes up to, I think it's about 8,000 feet.
It goes up to about 7,500.
7,500, yes. So it goes up to a level which is where the
there's a
restaurant there, and there's hiking right there. Now, when you go up the ski lift, you actually see people hiking all the way up the trail. So it's just a beautiful space. And some people who have gone with me, I've taken people up the last 5 years. I didn't go this year, but during the last 5 years, I've taken groups of people with me to attend. And they are always just amazed at the beauty of nature because you get to see trees close up. I was a skier and I used to take ski lifts, but of course, when you ski, the trees are all covered in snow, and you don't really get to see the trees or the animals. So to go up a ski lift in the summer is just a beautiful time.
Plus the views.
Yes,
when you get up to the top, and then you can just see so far into the Mojave Desert on the one hand, or on one side, and just looking out so far. You can even see on a clear day, which you can see the ocean. Yeah.
Yes. So the first level, there's a gathering, and that's often the largest gathering, but sometimes it's divided 50,
Right.
50 people. And so that first gathering is people come together on that first level. And then the next level is a hike of about 20 minutes.
No, the middle level, I'd say it's more like 40, 45.
Okay, well,
level.
it says on the sheet, I thought 20. I haven't been up there.
That's the bottom one.
The bottom one, okay.
Yeah,
Oh, the bottom one is 20. It's not 20. It's about 15.
10,
so
10, 15,
yeah.
yeah.
So anyway, there's another level that people can go up that requires a hike. And then the third level is an even longer hike that takes you closer to the top. Yes.
That we say allow at least 2 hours. If you're in good shape, you can do it in an hour and a half, or perhaps even less. But we say a couple of hours. So consequently, the ceremonies themselves are sort of staggered. At the bottom, it starts at 11. At the middle, it starts at 11:30, and then at the top, 12:30. And then we like to have a period at about 12:30 where everybody, all of the pilgrims, whatever level they're on, we stop and we have a silent meditation for about 5 minutes where we can all tune in with each other.
Yes. So can you share some of the attendees, the organizations that they represent?
Yeah, well, I think we've had just about every single faith, certainly all of the major faiths. You'd be surprised how many different faiths there are and denominations of all these various faiths. We've only ever held it for fairly obvious reasons, either on a Saturday or a Sunday. When we have it on a Saturday, that is not popular with the Orthodox Jewish people because, of course, they can't come. And when we hold it on a Sunday, well, naturally, with the exception of the Seventh-day Adventists, it's harder to get Christians. But it's tremendous. I mean, just about every local interfaith organization, and there are many interfaith organizations here in Southern California and other peace organizations have sponsored this event. But yeah, we get Christian ministers, we get Muslim imams, Jewish rabbis, Sikhs, Hindus, vice abbots of many different sort of Buddhist organizations, whether it's Tibetan Buddhist or Zen Buddhist or whatever it may be, Brahmakumaris. Let me think. I don't know. It's just a lot, and of course,
yes,
indigenous
I'm not,
people. We have indigenous.
right.
We had the local chief of the local local tribe, the Pomona tribe.
Yes, I was actually looking for my picture with him last year, and
that was Chico. See, almost every year, if not every year, something remarkable happens. Last year, I mean, as in this year, it was incredibly dry. I mean, we just don't get any rain here in Southern California, and there was no forecast of rain a year ago. But this Native American called Chico, who's unfortunately now moved to Arizona, led a rain dance. You were there.
I was there.
And literally out of clear blue sky, rain began to fall. I remember the first pilgrimage, actually, we were at the top, and the Sikhs were leading a wonderful chant. And there was a slight breeze, which was nice. I mean, we had, people had their prayer booklets or whatever. And I remember that during this chant, there was a prayer booklet on the ground, and the breeze picked it up. And so it sort of blew away, and I was watching it, as were a few of us, just sort of waiting to see where it would land and then go and pick it up. And what happened, this prayer booklet literally just started to go up, and it just went up and up and up, and we were also, well, many of us were watching it, and it was white with this clear blue sky above it, and it literally just kept going up until you couldn't see it anymore. Totally unusual, and it was a wonderful sort of way of sort of demonstrating how our prayers, if you like, were being carried up to heaven.
Yes. So part of what I was sharing about being with one of the Native Americans is that really a place of diversity. So to have someone who was there that you don't see every day in Native dress and actually doing customary dances and movements, and he did several rituals while we were there. And as Paul said, there actually did rain during that time, which was very interesting because we hadn't seen rain in weeks. The other thing that I wanted to share with the audience is what happens during that time, over that 2-hour period. And from being one of the faith leaders who's been a part of it, we are each asked to participate and lead something that takes either 5 or 10 minutes in the process. 5 minutes if you're going to read something directly, and then you're given a little bit of leeway if you're doing something that will involve the audience that's with you. So for several years, I've gone and taken affirmations that people say with me and behind me. and we do a prayer or a song. I always try to do a song in assisting people to really participate. In the past, we've had singers bring guitars up, drums, Sikh singers who have their instruments. A lot of different kinds of people have shown up, and we all just learn from each other. The title of today's show is We All Can Get Along. And I don't know if you all read what was put down. I really felt that in going back to the Rodney King statement from the riots. And I think it's so interesting to me because I remember hearing through the media that he said, "Can't we all just get along?" And that isn't what he said. I went back and found a recording of the newscast. And he said, "Can we all get along?" There was no just in there, and there was no can't. And it's been reported in different ways, in different phrases. But what's most important is the question, can we all get along? And that was my question for today, for the audience, as well as for why we have something like the Aetherius Society and the World Peace Pilgrimage, of bringing organizations together who have different faiths. And when you read the paper or watch the news, there's usually conflict when people come together because we're not believing the same thing. But that's not the truth. I live in an interfaith environment where that's what I pursue. I teach, I speak, I bring together people of different faiths, and we get to know each other. And what we find is that we're so much more alike in what we do, say, believe, and practice. So, Reverend Paul, would you share a little bit from that standpoint?
Absolutely.
And especially the fact that you said at the beginning your organization was going up to pray and were not necessarily involved with other people. So what did you learn about these other groups?
Well, I would say that absolutely we can get along. One thing we always say about the Interfaith World Peace Pilgrimage is that we climb as one human family. And we also say this is a non-political event and it's a non-commercial event. Nobody, if you like, is paid. Even if we had the Dalai Lama or the Pope, we wouldn't pay them. Nobody is paid to go and pray on a human mountain. We literally go as the human race, as one human family. And I think that in terms of can we all get along, I went on a spiritual retreat last month. And one of the exercises we did, which is, when you hear about it, you're sort of a little bit of trepidation, but absolutely beautiful, just amazing, such a natural exercise. It really isn't an exercise, but was to take someone, we lined up and just look into their eyes. For a sustained period of time, for I can't remember how long it was, just to look into a person's eyes. You look beyond everything.
Absolutely.
You look beyond everything. You don't see color, you don't see age, you don't see nationality. I mean, they say the eyes are the window to the soul. And in that absolutely beautiful, remarkable, deeply emotional experience, we reconnect. We reconnect with ourselves and with each other in an incredibly profound and beautiful way, and it transformed the whole of our retreat. And so so with that kind of experience, absolutely we can all get along. We go beyond our faith.
Yes.
Beyond our faith, we're all the same. We all came from the same, if you like, God or source. We're all going back to the same. We've just chosen temporary, different disguises, if you like. That's my feeling on it. So yes, and I'd say that is our purpose and our message in life is to connect in that way.
Yes. And what I'd like to do is come back. We're going to take a little musical break for a moment, and then we're going to come back to the Larry Yates Is show and have a conversation about nature and some things that may be a little controversial. So come back with us as you hear this music from the Agape Choir.
The earth is free again. The earth is free again. She glows with life again. She glows with life again. The air is purified.
Everybody.
The air is purified, and peace is in her skies, and peace is in her skies. My heart is free again. My heart is free again. I glow with life again. I glow with life again. My thought is purified. My heart is purified, and peace is in my eyes, and peace is in my eyes. Our prayers will flower where they land. We let them fly, we let them stand, and through the earth our joy shall ring. The earth is free again. Our prayers will flower where they land. We let them fly, we let them stand.
Thank you, thank you. The earth is free again. It's a song that I hope as you were listening to it let you think about earth and nature and the sky and what we're doing. And I thought it was appropriate since we were talking about Mount Baldy. And if you have a computer, I'd encourage you to just go on and look for some pictures of Mount Baldy so you get a chance to see the beauty in which we usually reside. This is the Larry Yates Says Is show. This is Reverend Carolyn Wilkins sitting in for the magnificent Larry Yates, and he'll be back next week. I wanted to share a couple of things. I did not go this year, and I had a group of people that were going to attend with me, but the reason I didn't go is I was concerned a little bit about respiration, breathing. And right on the mountain next to it, within 15, 20 miles, were
Even less than that.
less than that, were the fires that you have been hearing about on the news. When they said California is burning, that's where they were talking about. And I literally called the fire department a couple of days beforehand to see what their thoughts were, what their ideas were, and whether there was particulate matter that we have to be concerned about. Because when I'm bringing people on an excursion, there are people that are young, and then there are people who are in their 80s. So I was concerned from the group standpoint, not so much myself, of whether it was going to impact people. So I chose not to go because of the group and the fact that the fires had been burning for over 2 weeks. The good news is that the fires are now almost 80% contained, and people are going back to their homes. In fact, for that weekend, last weekend, almost there were several thousand people who were allowed back into their homes. So we were playing it close because the area was evacuated from home for those who lived in the area, not Mount Baldy itself, but the cities that were within 15 miles of Mount Baldy. So I know everyone who went was safe and there were no concerns, but again, we have to make decisions for how we affect other people. Now, I'm going to come back. We have the flowers and the songs and the mountains and everything. And my question is, this is far away from the inner city of Los Angeles. And most of the time when I go, there are very few people from an inner city that may be represented in that group. So while I know that we have connection and hope and that we can get along, what do we say to the young men and women who are dealing with challenges of poverty, lack of employment, police brutality, gang violence, domestic violence? What do you say to that group who we may all have participated in at some point, because you can have poverty no matter where you came from? So what do we say to the rest of the world in light of this beautiful experience that took 5 hours on Saturday? You're on.
What do I say to that?
Yes.
I would love to have more people from the inner city come out and join us. If I remember, you mentioned skiing earlier on. I've only been skiing once, over 30 years ago. Very fortunate to go in Switzerland, and I came back and I felt, this is wrong. That this is just the privilege of the few and the wealthy. Mm-hmm. And I just felt it hit me very, very strongly at the time, and it's such that I can still remember it today. Everybody should have the opportunity, no matter what their class or background or wealth, to have that experience in nature, to be able, because you see the world as God really made the world, not as a concrete jungle. And so, Mount Baldy is similar in that sense, where we do have the opportunity to get out. For me, locally, I live in Hollywood, and as I mentioned, I go into Griffith Park at least once a week. I just need to. Yes. It restores the soul. In fact, I when I say I go out there, I go out there either on my bicycle or I walk for physical exercise. But I always say it's much more for my mind.
Yes,
it's as much for my mind. So would love to have people come out, join us. And as you mentioned, I mean, it's not often that we get to sort of see an imam from Afghanistan or Pakistan,
Yes.
or a Jewish person or Sikhs and all that. And when we do see them, again, we get to see them that really they are just like you and me. So that in terms of the World Peace Pilgrimage, yes, we get to see people of different who are not like who on the face of it are not like us, but we can see that actually they're just like us.
Absolutely.
But
yes.
I totally agree with you. This need to, this opportunity to get out into nature, and for people who literally can't afford it, and I can fully relate and understand to that and understand that. I don't know. I mean, there's people then need to sort of be persistent and sort of say, Paul, how am I going to get out there? You know, I don't have the money. I don't have a car. Okay, then let me think about that. How can we arrange this? Maybe we need to sort of arrange for a bus or something, who's going to go and pick people up. I think that there's an enormous amount to be said for persistence, for a sense of desire, for a sense of, the slogan talking about politics from Barack Obama 8 years ago, yes, we can. Yes, I can. I mean, you may not have the money, but you know what? God gave you a mind. God gave you a tongue. God gave you a heart. God gave you determination. These, and you mentioned in the Olympics,
Yes.
the young girl, Simone
Yes.
Biles. I mean, and so many other athletes. The runner, Felix. Was it Angela Felix?
Yes, Angela Felix.
And the other, Bowie, I can't remember her first name, but these people did not have privileged, fortunate backgrounds at all, not hardly any of them. But it's that inner urge, that inner voice, that inner conscience that we all have. That's not the privilege of any single human being. We all have that, and it's that is just what we need to sort of get in touch with and bring into every aspect of our life.
Yes, I totally agree. And as you were talking, I can see, I have a vision now of there being an opportunity for young people to experience nature in a different way. It changed my life. I was telling Paul a little bit earlier that I grew up on the East Coast in what's the original concrete city, which is Brooklyn, New York. And yet I had the experience of nature all around me because my parents took us to someplace in the woods every weekend. So there were many parks in New York City, and they in fact designed them from the 1850s. There was land set aside in all of the 5 boroughs of New York to ensure that there was land for the people. And I thought that was brilliant when I researched it a couple of months ago. And I got to have the privilege of knowing nature, even though I grew up in an apartment building, several apartment buildings in New York City. But there was Prospect Park, which was 160 acres, 1,600 acres. There was Bear Mountain, which was a place in the mountains in the Catskills. There was the Bronx Zoo, Central Park, all of these amazing places that met green. It met rowboats in the summer. It met fishing. My brother and dad would go fishing in those little ponds, and they get a little rowboat and their fish hooks and fishing rods, and I'd help look for worms. That was not my desire, but I'd help to do it. That was my part. And when I was old enough, I got to go in the boat and go fishing. So it was something I looked up to doing. So I got to see nature. The botanical gardens, I think, were as close to just beauty all around. And it gave me a sense of beauty that I take with me no matter what country I go into. I look at buildings, but I look more at nature whenever I travel. So I am going to take that up really as an opportunity to connect with other organizations, faith-based groups, to get young people into nature. I know they're bringing gardens to schools, but there's still the opportunity. It's close enough for us to bring children to those places. So perhaps next year we're looking at whether they come to Mount Baldy or not. There are places right in Los Angeles, as you said, Griffith Park and some other things that might be an opportunity. So I encourage us all to take a child into nature. They may go kicking and screaming because you can't get internet. You may not be able to use telephone, which is what they're connected to. But when you see the activity of ants and bees and worms and squirrels and all the things that are out there, it helps you understand. I'm almost sure that the brain child, I actually worked with scientists who developed computers, and I know the only way they could see that possibility is by seeing the infrastructure of a bee's hive, by seeing how an ant nest can grow. And in Africa, I saw a 6-foot ant's nest, which was very overwhelming, but it showed the intricacy of what nature does. So I encourage us to look at that place of nature and the yes, we can get along. We can go into nature and appreciate the birds and the bees and the swimming and all the other things that help to restore our soul. So I know we only have a few minutes left. I'd like to come back to ask you, as a spiritual leader, a spiritual director, would you tell us just quickly about the Aetherius Society, and then come back and share what we can do to go forward in making this a smaller world?
Well, in terms of making it a smaller world, yes, but at the same time, as you mentioned earlier, expanding our view rather than narrowing our view. Just very, very topical in the news yesterday, it came out that they've discovered, astronomers have discovered a new planet. Did you hear about that?
I did.
Yes, just
Right
in
next to
right,
us.
the closest possible planet to us. And it's literally described as being, at the end of the street, even though it's over 4 light years to reach it. We're part of something absolutely vast in creation, and we've had a very, very sort of limited understanding of who we are and what our place is in this incredible grand scheme of the great architect, God, who the divine source, whatever behind it all. So the Aetherius Society brings definitely sort of greater cosmic perspective to spirituality. But at the same time, there is that word spirituality. We are fundamentally spiritual beings. And our purpose here on Earth, our Aetherius Society understanding, is we're here to evolve, ultimately even to sort of progress beyond just this one planet, to life existence on other planets, but inhabiting obviously a different physical body to the one that we have now. And the way to do that literally is by the manipulation of energy or spiritualizing energy, which energy is there for all of us. We exist in a sea of energy. It's how we use that energy. And when we use it literally through something like prayer, which is focusing the mind on higher thoughts, on aspirations, filling that or feeding that with a sense of love that we all have in our heart, and directing it with intention to a source. It might be a person. It might be, as we've been very actively engaged in the last couple of days, sending it to a disaster situation such as the earthquake that they've had just over a day ago in Italy. And prayer energy is very real. I mean, we, within hours of hearing of that earthquake, had sent over 500 hour prayer, what we call prayer hours of energy to that situation, to help to give strength to the relief workers, to give hope or whatever strength to those who were buried in the rubble.
Yes.
Prayer energy is a remarkable force,
Yes,
completely under. I mean, Mahatma Gandhi, who is this great, remarkable figure of the last century, but one of his great quotes is that prayer, and he said, properly understood and applied,
Yes.
is the most potent instrument of action.
Absolutely.
And we can all pray. We can all use its thought, its love, in
Yes.
directing it to a destination. And we can all be involved in that. And I think when we go on the World Peace Pilgrimage, not only do we bring all these faiths together as one human family, but together we invoke spiritual energy and we send it out. And we don't know the ends of that prayer energy, but it's
Right.
going to go somewhere.
Yes.
And it's going to do some good.
Yes. Well, I thank you so much for being with us today, Reverend Paul Nugent. And what I would like to add to what he just shared is when I said make the world smaller, I meant in the concept of who we are to each other.
Yeah.
Because no matter how big the universe is, when you can open your heart to someone, it's as though they became part of your family. So it's not in consciousness, you're opening up to the greater yet to be, to new planets, to new oceans, to new opportunities. But in the real realm of using our energy in a very positive standpoint and to be with people, whether they're of like mind or not, but you can connect with people in a completely different way when you open your heart. So I like to say, like the Dalai Lama, my religion is kindness. And when I open myself to someone else and allow my heart to heal, allow my eyes to look into their eyes, I see myself and I see spirit. So I appreciate all of you who are listening, those who may listen a little bit later. This is the Larry Yates As Is show, coming to you live from Hollywood. And as Larry ends every show, a nation can rise no higher than it elevates its women. So peace, blessings, and may you send your own energy through prayer, because I know it's a common idea in all religions that prayer heals. So whoever you want to support right now, the earth is in need of prayer. The political realm, our children, those who are dealing with earthquakes and challenges on the physical realm, and hospitals are full of people. So let us pray, let the women pray, let the women lead the prayer and the peace in the world. Have a great day. This is Reverend Carolyn Wilkins. Peace.